How's it going? Well, SaaSiest Malma? Yeah? Okay. Thanks, guys. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Annika, but I also have to say that is a complete lie. I'm not going to speak about any of that stuff. I really want to say, first off, thank you guys for being here. You could be anywhere at the SaaSiest conference right now. I think out there is a CEO on the main stage that is telling you how she's using Claude Code to automate raising her kids. And, more power to her, right? We're going to talk about something a little bit different, which is about the journey of scaling product teams on the path to unicorn. Now, I wanted to chat today about something that's a bit more of like a human story. We're all very excited about AI, but in the end, we all have to really solve problems. So this is going to be for you if you have to scale a team, scale a product team. If you've ever had someone sit opposite you and say, hey, I trust you to do this, and you've wondered in yourself, like, am I good enough to do this? Then this is going to be for you. It's not going to be for you if you're looking for a really polished corporate, as maybe this gentleman is, looking for a really polished corporate, like, yeah, this is why I'm so great. I'm going to share the real deal, and I'm just going to be honest with you. This is a safe space, and we're going to treat it as such. So to start off with, I would like to ask you guys for a major favor, and if everyone could sort of like help me out here, we're going to have a bit of a meditative moment. So everyone, close your eyes. We're going to take a big, deep breath in through the nose, and out through the mouth. Okay, and now keep your eyes closed and raise your hand if you're here because someone at some point has sat opposite you and said, I trust you. You're going to lead this team. You're going to lead this function. You're going to do this job. Yes? Okay. And keep your hands raised if you can picture and visualize and remember what that moment was like. Where are you sitting? Was it a sunny day or was it a rainy day? Was it, bright outside? Okay? You can put your hands down now, but keep your eyes closed. And I want you to picture this. It's September. It's 2022. I am sitting in the office of Data Snipper in Amsterdam. It's like one of those bright autumn days, but it's getting quite cold, so the leaves are crunchy underfoot. And I'm sitting opposite the founders who have said to me, you're not just going to become a product owner, like what you've actually been lobbying for since you joined Data Snipper, but actually, we're going to make you a head of product. And how did I feel in that moment? Was I excited? Was I nervous? Actually, it was more like, what am I going to do? And so if you have that moment in your life at any point, you can open your eyes now, then that's really what we're going to talk about. Because the reality is that there's always a trichotomy in these moments, right? And what the world sees is this great sort of picture of you putting it out on LinkedIn, like, I'm so happy I've been promoted to this position. And the theoretically correct answer is like, okay, that's great. Like, you just go away and do things. But in reality, that screaming moment of yeah, what am I going to do? That's really where I was. So I thought about this in the years since then, and I've thought, why is that the case? And the situation is, if you're feeling that imposter syndrome and you're feeling that wonder of like, where am I going to go? That's because you're trying to do something that's really difficult. Statistics show that only 2% of companies actually make it past 2 million ARR. And at Data Snipper, we went 1 to 7 to 21 to 45 to 80. And yeah, that's relatively a hard thing to do. So give yourself a moment, give yourself a break, and realize that you are doing something that's statistically unlikely. And so I developed these kind of 5 holy shit moments to try and kind of talk through this scaling journey. So to start with, we're going to talk about the first round, which is survive. At this stage, it's literally just me in my product org. I show up, I have like 6 engineers, and we're just like trying to figure stuff out. So what we're really trying to do is basically get everyone together, stay loose, and instead of worrying so much about scalability, we were really trying to work of actually bringing the product to the next level. So what everyone sees is this idea of this scrappy startup, right? Fast growth, like everything's moving in one direction. And what people tell you is that you need to sort of create this structure. But actually, in the real world, you solve this stage by building something that solves a really deep pain for an embarrassingly small number of people. And that's how you get past and survive this stage. You're not running an orchestra, you're conducting a jazz band, right? Okay, that's the idea that you want to keep here. So that's basically how you get through the survive stage. Now, if you're lucky there, then you're going to sort of grow more to that 5 to 10 million ARR. And maybe this will take you a year, maybe this will take you 6 months, maybe it'll take you 1 month. I don't know. I don't have all of the answers. But at this stage, you start to have these feelings of scaling the business. Here, I actually was able to hire a product designer, me and a guy called Bas Kranendonk, and we became like a gruesome twosome. And we would sort of go to customer meetings together and sort of just like try and blow up like understanding what the accountants were doing. But at the same time, that also like brings more challenges as well. And so the story that I recall here is at this point, I really felt like the punching bag. So it was my first release that I'd ever done, first time being a head of product. And I was spending like every evening and weekend just like going through the product, like trying to find all the bugs that we could. And this is not like a continuous improvement, continuous deployment product. This was an Excel plugin that we were packaging as an MSI and like blasting it off to outer space and giving it to our customers. So we needed to make sure that this product was really good and didn't have that many bugs. And what happened is, inevitably, as you're doing that, we shipped off the product and it had a bunch of bugs. So at a certain point, I get pulled into this meeting room, like 1 month after taking on the head of product role. The founders were shouting at me, like, I did this, why are you not doing this as well as I did? The sales team was shouting at me because they were in a demo and the product wasn't working. I see this guy over here laughing, and I really do feel like I've got some relatability here. The engineers were unhappy with me because they felt like I was rushing them to not do their best work. And then I go home and my girlfriend's unhappy with me because I'm not picking my socks up off the floor or doing the dishes. So at this point, you really are feeling like the punching bag. And I was stressed out, and I was waking up at 5 a.m. every morning like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get this release to work? And then one day, I saw a video that a friend sent me. Who here by show of hands knows what the James Webb Space Telescope is? Have you guys heard of this? Yeah, okay, a few people. So it's like the Hubble Space Telescope, right? And so this video was this guy getting interviewed, and he's worked on this James Webb Space Telescope for 25 years. Like basically almost all of his professional career, he's been working on this project. And they asked him, like, what are you going to do on launch day? How are you going to feel? And he was like, yeah, I'm just going to be chilling. And the guy was like, you're going to be chilling? This is like 25 years of your life, man. What's going on? And he said, look, if there was something to worry about, we've worried about it. And we've taken our time to do that. So when that rocket fires and the space telescope gets blasted up into orbit, I can't worry anymore because everything's done. And that was the moment that really switched it for me. I stopped waking up at 5 a.m. and I started trying to worry about things ahead of time. And how do you do that? Well, at the end of this, I'm going to flash up a QR code. I'm going to give you all of my templates for free. But the key things that you need to align: vision. Okay, what does the world look like in the next 3 or 5 years' time? Maybe that's too hard now. Maybe it becomes only 1 or 2 years. But just try and think about the future and pull people to live there with you. Strategy. What are the next 5 or 6 things that you're going to build to take you closer to your vision? What bets are you going to take? What's your opinion? Be opinionated. And finally, the roadmap. And don't try and create a bunch of Gantt bars and charts and say when things are going to come out. That's an attempt to control what is inherently a chaotic world, okay? Put things into perspective of priority. Now, what are we doing today? Next, what are we going to do after that? And later, what do we think is a good idea that will come then? And all of these things need to tie your strategy together. This needs to be one clean line. If you can communicate this, then you can avoid being the punching bag. And then, if you're lucky, you'll grow into the next stage. So now we're in the 10 to 15, 20 million ARR. We're organizing. So at this point, I start hiring a bunch of different PMs, and we create different squads. Spotify model. Spotify's not used that model for 10 years, but yeah. Okay, so we have to start thinking about team topology. And at this point, you get into the moment where you realize that the bozo explosion is real. So to tell you a story about this, I hired a guy brilliant PM, like really smart guy, and I was super excited with him. So I put him on a project. This was 2022, so ChatGPT came out. So all of a sudden, we were all just thinking we need to put a chatbot in our product. And so he was working on our one, and the idea was like you can ask a question like, "How much is this invoice for?" And then it would like respond to you as a chatbot, even though it's way quicker to just look at an invoice to do that. And so he was like super excited, right? So he's working on this GenAI thing, and I said, okay, have lunch with the founders. That's great. They're going to ask you about your product. And he went into this lunch, and he literally, as I heard it afterwards, sat there and trashed his own product for 30 minutes. And they were like coming out afterwards like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, why have you hired him? And why is he working on this product that he doesn't believe in? And I talked to him afterwards, and he was like, Youssef, I don't know what happened. I just blacked out and I just started talking about these things. And at this point, I was like, okay, as a leader, that's a reflection on me, right? We can laugh about this story and I can point out that maybe he could have communicated a bit more effectively, but as a leader, it's on me. I need to structure the way that he's going to engage with the founders and in general with any of the leaders of your organization. And that's why I developed the U-shaped involvement curve. So if you want to be able to bring those people, those leaders of your business, in to help with your product development, do it in a structured way. You build this x-axis of the time, okay? And you start with very high executive involvement, okay? This works at any scale of the company. I now work at Adyen, 4,000 people, major corporation. I'm building GenAI products there. I use the same exact thing as when I had a 20-person startup, right? You start off, you bring them in, high involvement, strategy sessions, product vision workshops, really let them like bring their feelings and their thoughts. Then let the team go away and do their work. Low involvement while you're building, right? They go away, maybe the founders are like opening new offices, maybe they're raising new funding, right? And then at the end, when you have a finished product, then you bring them back in and you say, okay, let's do a bug bash together. Let's go to a customer and present this together. And by doing that, you can structure their involvement and hopefully avoid these embarrassing lunch dates happening. So start sort of letting go of that, like saying yes to everything, let people do everything, and start kind of cultivating and managing. And if you're again lucky and a little bit skilled, then you'll move on to the next stage. And now you're going to be in the 20 to 50 million ARR. Honestly, this is probably one of the darkest points of my journey. I would basically have loads of people on LinkedIn and all of my friends from back home like reaching out to me like, wow, this is great, you're doing something so interesting. But this is when I had some of the worst imposter syndrome that I've ever felt. And I would go home and sit on my couch and watch some like Real Housewives reality TV show and just like have a panic attack every night because I did not know if I was good enough to do the job at this point. And, this all really came to a head at a certain point because we hired a new CEO and I convinced her somehow that she should kind of back me. She pushed for me to get promoted and the board nominated me to be the VP product. And I was super excited about that. And then one day, as we were doing like our quarterly review, I knew it was not going to be good because she asked me to go for a walk around the building and I knew she only really did that if there was like some tough feedback to give. I think she read that Harvard Business Review article. And she said to me like, look, Youssef, it's going good, roadmap's getting delivered, board likes the strategy, but there is one problem. All of your team hates you, all of them want to quit, and no one really likes working for you. And I was like, okay, fuck. And again, going home, feeling really upset. What am I doing wrong? And I had two choices in that moment, right? I could either turn around and say, no, that's on them and be defensive. Or I could use that as the moment to kind of learn, hey, what's actually driving this? No one is the bad guy in their own story. And I'm not presenting myself as the bad guy to you here, but I was the bad guy to my team back then. I wasn't a good leader. So I did that second option. It was really painful. I went on loads of really long walks with them and just said, hey, what can I do better? And just shut up. And I listened. And through that, what I learned is that if I could start every meeting with a question instead of telling people why they were wrong, if I could push people to show up their strengths instead of denigrating them for their weaknesses, and if I could try and bring people together instead of playing them off against each other, then that was the way that I could actually become a better leader. And so I left Data Snipper, I went on to work at ComplianceWise, I was the head of product and technology there, and 2 months in, I hired a designer, and she gave some anonymous feedback and was like, Youssef is one of the best managers I've ever worked for. He really gives me the space to work, and he really allows me to, be myself and bring what I bring to the table. And that was one of the things that I was like, yeah, I'm printing this out. I'm putting it on my fridge. I actually got like teary-eyed at getting that little bit of feedback. It's in HiBob or whatever, one of these HR systems. I don't know if anyone's ever cried looking at an HR system before. Maybe at how low your salary is compared to how it should be, but for me, that was a really emotional moment. So get your ducks in a row. Don't make the ducks fall in line. That was the thing that I learned at this stage. And then I got to the point where, okay, now the company's growing and 50 million plus ARR. At this point, I'm actually getting to the end of my scaling journey with Data Snipper. It's been a good ride, but to tell you the truth, I was out of my depth like 3 stages ago. So we start to kind of see the cracks showing. And so essentially, I realized at this stage that most of my job was not really about building anything or making products or even really about developing talent at this point. Now I was a manager of managers, and everything was really about architecting a storyline and architecting a culture. And so I realized now I'm really dancing with the devil. So we brought in this executive board, these very fancy investors, Index Ventures came on board, and they brought really smart people. We got to meet with like the CPO of Notion, and I love Notion, so that was a bit like me being a bit of a fangirl moment. And I sort of, had these people to talk to. I presented my strategy to them, and I did it with like a storyboard, like literal hand-drawn like sketches and stuff. I used like a story spine framework, and at the end of it, my CEO literally said, okay, mic drop. And I was like, okay, I'm here, I've arrived. But the thing is that I realized the job is no longer to actually do the work. It's to architect the culture and to build meaningful systems at this stage that will live beyond you. Keeping the fun in the work, right? Quarterly hackathons, letting people experiment, finding the ways that you can stay close to the product, doing a bug bash every release that you have. Start writing things down. You should at this stage be creating a newsletter that you're sending every week. And when a new person joins your team, guess what? Here's the past 10 newsletters. Get up to speed, right? And now, because we have AI, have your agent read the past 10 newsletters. Make a podcast about them, right? All of this stuff is going to help you scale your knowledge. And syncing the board on a regular basis, right? So maybe you do it weekly, maybe you do it monthly. The best trust that you're going to build with the board is when you send them the update that they don't ask for. And think about it. What are you doing to earn their trust? How are you comfortable that the fact that they're investing millions of dollars into your organization, that's something that they're getting value for? How do you make them know that? That's a question you have to answer. And so this is my framework, and this is the map. If you can survive the beginning, structure your organization, organize people through the bozo explosion, align them as they grow, and lead through to the end, then you'll probably be able to do at least as good a job as I did, if not way, way better. And I definitely think you can do better than me. And yeah, these are a few things that have helped me. Just a parting thought that I want to leave you guys with. And this is something that a few Olympians have spoken about. When you're trying to do something really difficult, and I think something that only 2% of companies can do, I categorize as really difficult, a third of the time, it's going to be fucking amazing. I'm riding my bike across a bridge in Amsterdam. The sun is shining. I'm living my life, right? A third of the time, it's going to be like, meh, okay, just on my routine. And a third of the time, it's going to feel absolutely awful, okay? And when you're in that third of the time that it's awful, I want to give you one bit of advice that my friend Andre, who was doing a PhD in philosophy, told me. When you're swimming neck deep in shit, don't look down. So keep your eyes up, trust yourself, believe in your vision. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you guys joining. Everything I've learned over these hard-word lessons, I try to put into these sort of like templates. Check them out. I'm really happy to connect with you on LinkedIn, even if it's just for some group therapy. And thank you so much for joining my session.
Yeah, thank you, Youssef. What energy to close off this stage. Another round of applause for Youssef. Okay. Amazing. Awesome. I love the product newsletter, by the way, because it always does get lost. You know, a Notion page gets lost. So I love that. It's a great tip I took away. Do we have any questions for Youssef before we wrap up? Okay, I have a selfish question. How did you, oh wait, maybe there is one. Yes, okay, I'll come back to you.
You have to run.
I know, I have to run back there.
Hey, thank you. So, can you give like a rough indication of like what were your team sizes along this journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, in the old version of the deck, I used to like have the org. I think that's something that's really hard to answer. For me, like the team was like 2 people in the first stage, then like 10 people in the second stage. It grew to like 30 people in the third stage, and then about 50 people in stages 4 and 5. I think now with AI, those teams could be a tenth of the size. So that's also why I took it out for this one, because it really felt like I was talking about something that was really 5 years ago.
Yeah, and interestingly, then you won't be a leader of leaders anymore.
Yeah, that's actually why I went back into being an individual contributor in the job at Adyen, because I really recognized that I had some great experience here as a product leader, and it was super fun and I enjoyed it a lot. Not every moment, as you guys heard, but most of it. But now I realize that I think the highest leverage I can have is to be like a strong individual contributor. And what I've noticed is that I'm not really managing a team of people anymore, but I am still managing a team of agents. So the skills of delegation, prioritization, setting clear boundaries and vision and guardrails, those are all the things that are helping me become a strong product person today.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you again, Youssef, for that amazing talk.